Rate of urbanization keeps increasing means that demand for buildings and infrastructure keeps increasing, and the productivity is either flat or decreasing. We could actually, if nothing is done, the business as usual, we keep it, by the time of 2050, so 2/3 of the urban population will be living in slum-like conditions. That's what basically triggered me the thought that we probably need to build a technology that can very rapidly do an urban transformation. And then we realized that the best which we look at is that if you look at the way the cities are either regenerated or they are built, you go through some number of stages. So we call it investigation, innovation, incubation, integration, and manage operation, right? And we found out that even though we are not into construction, the innovation part creates a lot of problems. Not because it takes only a long time, that doesn't take much time. People are able to do it in probably 4 months or maybe a year. The approval time is very high, number one. And not only that, the issue is that some of the things that we don't see in the future and we think which is good and come up in the later on as a problem and we cannot undo it. So what motivated us is that if we could have a rigorous analysis before we approve or before we design a building or approve a building, that could be an excellent what you call is an outcome of our software. Number one, that we want to reduce the cost of infrastructure investment, for example. And number two, more importantly, we want to reduce the continuous reinvestment on the infrastructure that goes on in cities. At the GeoWorks, which is the Urban Innovation Center or Geospatial Technology Innovation Center in Singapore. And this is actually a community here where we are basically all the tech companies. So we are one of the tenants here. Urbanetic is a urban innovation company working to make our cities livable, sustainable, and affordable for all. We use our software Fabric, which basically is a tool to build scenario planning to help our customers plan and manage cities much more efficiently in terms of time and cost. Around middle of 2012, we were given a task to do an urban transformation of a city called Putrajaya. And it took us 2 years to model the city and analyze it and finally coming out with a number of geospatial, we call it, or spatial innovations that needs to be done in terms of transportation, instead of spaces, new space design. And I felt that all these 2 years could have been squeezed down to perhaps 3 to 4 months if we could do it programmatically, because a lot of it is basically driven by logic and data. And that's where I actually started thinking of starting my own company, which we call it data-driven urban transformation. That was the target, right? Our mission is to deliver significant impact on the total performance of the built environment and liberalize the direct financing of these projects for impactful ESG outcomes. The idea for the last many years that we are working is that unless and until sustainability is profitable, we will not be able to rally people. And the impact financing wave that is going on probably will not reach its peak and will not be a normal thing to do unless we make sustainability profitable. And ESG, as you know, it stands for environmental, sustainable, and governance. And that probably is another part of our software tool, which actually, as you know, a distributed ledger or a blockchain, where is the key component that is part of the overall planning and design 3D modeling, so that we could actually create assets that are ESG or potentially ESG rated and can be rated and at a design time, and then model it in a way that it can be financed. We see a lot of buildings and infrastructure. If the performance, or total performance of the built environment or a building is same or very close to what it was on a day one of commissioning, okay, then after 5 years, then we could actually release or free the trapped liquidity that is attached to this huge asset class. So that's basically talk about where target we are going from and how our mission will deliver those products. So products to actually deliver that promise that we are basically trying to achieve, or target that we are trying to achieve. When you talk about decarbonization and on all those areas, or basically planning, and cities, typically some cities are actually growing vertically in depth as well as in height. For there, you need, the context becomes very different. So you probably need, you really need a 3D context there to see that whether the impact of height, for example. So you go into a building, let's take a city, it's an old city, most of the houses and the offices are 3 to 4 or 5 floors, and there is a huge urbanization demand. I don't want to find a new land and then take up a lot of costs into the infrastructure building. What if I change my planning scheme and so allow let's say building height to maybe maximum to 30, for example. Now, if you do that, you have to do it for the whole neighborhood, let's say, for example, for the whole zone. And when we do that, you could actually quickly calculate and say, okay, is it feasible or not feasible? That's very important to have a height there. And when you see in your screen and you see things in 3D and color, you will come back with a far more imaginative solution as a planner than if you give it to 2D. So that's why we think that 3D is absolutely imperative to solve the problems that we are faced with today. We want to use innovation to make cities more livable, sustainable, and affordable for all. What we think of the process is that today we have technology that without disturbing anyone, we could actually build a digital twin of any city, anywhere in the world, anywhere between 30 minutes to a day. Now, because these data are coming from very different places, some are open source, some are privately acquired, they may not be actually accurate. We want the municipalities, the first port of call for us. So we start getting data from the municipality about the buildings, planning schemes, zoning, building codes, all this. So we have regulatory data, and we have spatial data, and non-spatial data, which comes from typically the sensors, right? So when all these things put together in our data model, then you have a true digital twin. Comes to the next stage is a smart city marketplace, allowing anywhere in the world, we have some innovative ideas and use cases, could plug into that particular city's data model that we have built and actually build solution and deliver it. And I think the municipality plays a major role for us because a lot of data has to come from there. So today in our technology, we have managed to integrate IoT, geospatial technology, and financial technology into one. And we are ready to start. And my call for action will be to make the leadership of the city, which is typically the administrative leadership, the municipalities and the mayors, they actually see that this is a starting point where they could go from A to point B much more effectively and efficiently than what they have today. If we are not changing anything, keeping business as usual, we might end up in a situation where 2/3 of the urban population are called urban poor. We want to avoid that. And the only way to do is to have the democratization of data and the collaboration of processes.